and welcome to the Pure Heart Church podcast. My name is Zach Good. I have the awesome opportunity to be the producer on this podcast, and I think that we've got a great episode for you today. So whether you're part of our church community or you're just tuning in, I'm so glad you're with us, and let's get started. Today we're sitting down with Executive Pastor Mark Hendrix, and we're going to be talking about the exciting opportunities that are coming up for our church in the next season. It's going to be a great time. So we're going to jump in with our hosts, Heath and Matt Nystrom, as they talk to Pastor Mark.
So we're hanging out with Pastor Mark, and there's some news that's been kind of being prequeled as we've been over the last month or so, and we got to announce it the last couple weeks. And some people maybe don't know what some of that news is, but it's a really exciting step for our church. And can you tell us a little bit about that, Mark?
Absolutely. We are looking at purchasing 40 acres in North Surprise and for a new campus. So we are not looking to replace any of our campuses. This will be an additional campus that we'll develop.
And so right now, like, my understanding is that we are in talking with the city just to make sure that we can, there's some things that we can do, but really we're just moving forward with the initial purchase of the land, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we're looking at probably just after the first of the year, closing on the property, but we're working with the city on some zoning things to make sure we can do all that we want to do in the future on that property.
Because like on this property too, here in Glendale, we've got a brush fire and things like that. And so that's what we're talking about doing out there. And correct me if I'm wrong, like this entire property that we have is how big?
It's just under 10 acres.
And
so it's 4 times the property.
Our Glendale campus.
Yes,
our Glendale
For those
campus.
that are like, where are you?
Where?
Yes.
This studio right here is 10 acres. We are in one small corner of the building.
Yes.
We filmed a moon landing here, actually.
It did.
So, yeah,
it was good. It was a little, there was a lot of wires. But
yes, a lot of them. But
But what I think is really cool about this is it's not just like, hey, we're going to go buy some land. There was actually a lot of intentionality, a lot of thought. This wasn't something that just happened right away. It was, how long of a process has this been going on in the murmurs of the
research and
research
investigation?
We've actually been over a year in this process so far.
That's
and
cool.
in process with the city on the zoning for at least 6 months, 8 months already.
Wow. And this land out there, there's nothing really out there at this time.
Well,
there's some houses and stuff, but it's pretty
I've driven
open.
out there. There's a lot of houses going on. We're talking thousands and thousands. What's the
there's
number on
Like
that?
commercial properties or churches and stuff.
It's popping up.
Yeah.
There are 30,000 new home starts already approved north and south of that property. So that area, that whole corridor along 163rd Avenue is going to be developed over the next few years, and it will be booming.
Yeah.
So,
Which is amazing. That's incredible.
I think about just like where our Glendale campus is, the amount of houses that are, around here. And yet years ago, this was, out in the middle of nowhere, this property. And so just thinking about the whole town growing around it. And then we have, as a church, the ability to land there. And also some of the things about, share a little bit about how this came about financially. I thought that was really cool.
yes, we had our broker start looking for properties, and this one came up among many.
Yeah.
That we started
looking 10 in that book when we were first.
Yeah, we were looking at it several. So, but there's a lot of development again going on around it. The price point was surprisingly less than we have seen comparable properties. So we continue to pursue and look at, is there something wrong with the property? And no, I mean, there's a wash on the property that will take up some of that land, but not enough to significantly hinder us from developing it into an amazing campus.
What's really cool is that I know that a lot of the home building companies and everything had actually approached and were trying to purchase either portions or the whole lot of this land and everything like that. And somehow, for whatever reason or whatever, that just had not happened yet. We come in, have a conversation, and they were highly receptive.
Yes.
Especially, I'm going to say especially, but knowing that it was a church that was interested, they responded very quickly to it. So,
yes. Very favorably. Yeah. With the negotiation process, everything. It was a great process.
That's so cool. It's an amazing price for the amount of land in a booming area. Something that I think is going to set us up really just incredibly for what God wants to do for Pure Heart Church in the future.
Absolutely.
Through us and everything. But what I find is interesting is that, for people who don't know the history of Pure Heart Church, like this type of move, I mean, there's been a series of moves in sometimes feeling maybe in tough times or whatever, but from everywhere from on Union Hills and I-17 to jumping out, I mean, you've been here for almost all of those big moves, right?
Yeah. We had the Union Hills property, and then we went to Thunderbird High School, and we were a mobile church for a period of time, and we had some land up on 51st Avenue in the 101, or the 101, and there was some issues with water and different things up there, and anyway,
like there was none. Right?
There was none.
That's an issue.
It's a desert.
Which I think has actually just been resolved if you've been around 51st Avenue. And
So
the
if we had just waited,
if we could have waited 15 or 20 years, it would have been great. But we were able to purchase the property we're currently on in Glendale. Another church, unfortunately, was in bankruptcy. So we were able to purchase this property, substantially discounted, and sell the other property and use those funds for this. Then we've acquired the Peoria campus as well a couple years ago.
That's right.
And now we're looking forward to this.
And I remember on this, because I actually went to high school on this property for a couple of years, and there was a big dome, and it had these palm trees that were all swirly and everything like that. But when the church decided to even build and everything, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, that was actually when the recession hit.
Yeah, when we built our current auditorium, we were halfway into the project, maybe a little bit more. I mean, we had the roof tiles on the roof and that to that stage, and our lender failed.
Oh, man.
So we had to scramble and find additional funds so we could complete the project. Yeah. So that was a bit stressful, but we got it done. And because of the economy going in the tank at that point, we ultimately ended up saving some money on construction costs. And then a couple years after that was completed, we did our children's building, and which houses brush fire and all of that. And
it's a beautiful facility.
And it's a great, yes. And, with that, even we came in under budget on all the construction with that project. So this campus is we've pretty much done everything we can do on our Glendale campus.
Yeah. I mean, we can build up.
Yes, which would require us tearing something else down first.
That's not the ideal.
Yes.
But we were just watching, we were looking for something else online in one of our archives yesterday, in fact, and we came across all our old construction update videos. We did those when they were remodeling this Glendale campus and the kids building, and we every week for a while, we would do those, and then it got to every 2 weeks. They're like, how many more ways can we say they're working on the drywall still? They're still doing the electrical because it's giant buildings. So every week I'd go, Mark, what are they working on now? What are they doing?
Same thing as last week.
Right? But I remember that process. We had people that we were shuttling up from. They would park down at McDonald's, and we'd shuttle them back and forth. I mean, there was a lot of challenges that came from expanding and growing. And yet I look at what's happening now. We're essentially maxing out this campus.
Yes,
and we, at the time, built for future growth, and I don't think any of us saw this future growth coming that quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. We tried to maximize the number of parking spots because that's usually the thing that snags or causes the issues is parking. And we thought we were good for a little bit longer. We're starting to see some issues between some of the services where parking's a little difficult.
It seems like a lot of parking until you get everybody here at the same time. Yeah. And then you're going, there's just not enough. But to your point, I think that's interesting. Is you built for the future back then, and what we're living in now is that future.
Yes.
And so it makes sense that we would then turn around and build for the future still. And it may seem like, wow, 40 acres. And, even looking at the costs, it's one thing to buy land. It's another thing to step in and go, okay, now we're going to build a campus on there.
Right.
But understanding what we built for here is we're living in it now.
Yeah.
And what we're about to undertake, at some point, we're going to be living in that and seeing the growth that hits. And it just strikes me as something going, I think Pure Heart has a tendency to lean in and consider and plan for the future in dynamic ways. And so in that area, demographics of people, from what I've heard, it's pretty high in young families.
Yeah, that's the driving demographic is young families.
That's amazing.
So that's very exciting. And obviously, we have a preschool here, and that's part of the plan to have a preschool out there, which I would imagine will fill up pretty quickly. Once we get that done.
So what is the thing that we can be as a church? What can we be praying for as we Because we're in the middle of the buying process of the land. So how can we jump in?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, just the continued favor with the city of Surprise for our zoning, that all goes well and is timely, and all of our vendors that were, traffic studies and engineers and all those kinds of things that we have to get done, that all that gets done in a timely manner. And then obviously the financial provision. Yeah. We would love to ultimately purchase this debt-free, and we'll see what happens on that. But, the financial provision, and Pure Heart's a very generous church. So we're looking forward expectantly to what God's going to do.
That's so good.
What I kind of love too is the way that Pastor Dan, was, as he's saying, hey, here's how we're going to approach this purchase, is we're going to start giving. Right now we're, starting out the fall, essentially. And he goes, hey, by the end of the year, that's when we're doing this. All the giving has to be in by then. That's what we're doing. We're not dragging it out for months and months and months.
It's on a 2-year campaign. Yeah.
Right.
And I just appreciate that. It's like, hey, we're going to take a step out in faith. Also, what's amazing is, can you share a little bit about some of the people who have already committed to some of these families that have committed to this purchase of land?
Sure. We've had some conversations with some of our financial leaders in the church. We're about $1.3 million already committed by the end of the year towards the project.
Yeah,
that's so good. So that's kind of like a physical expansion that we're doing, but we're jumping in a bunch of other things, and I'm probably, not to freak you out, I'm going off script a little bit, but I don't want to get lost in the process. Is that Pure Heart, we as a ministry really feel called to continue to expand not only just our geography, but in our reach in general.
Right.
So we're going to be expanding into a couple other areas with our partnership with Crossroads.
Correct.
Venue-wise and everything. And because you guys are kind of really in that, especially with the online campus, what does that look like?
Yeah, so for people that don't know, Crossroads Recovery, it's a inpatient recovery center, that they have, and one has a faith-based tract, and so we, for years now,
it was actually
18 or something.
Maybe, but I say Crossroads was our first satellite campus.
Yeah, first satellite campus.
Wow.
And these gentlemen who are walking through recovery are able to attend the service. They have, a pastor on campus that's there with them, and their faith being a part of them growing and maturing and recovering from their addiction. And so
it's the online campus, correct?
And now it's the online campus that we do. We stream into there. And now there's a couple more opportunities, a couple other Crossroads that are looking at bringing that on. And here's what I love is that the online campus allows, we put an investment into that every single week. It's a lot of work we have to do. We have, people that are, studio space and people that are editing and creating and yet whether we do it for 500 people or 5,000 or 50,000, that doesn't change much financially. And so it's an investment that we can, put money into, and it can continue to grow. And so even we're looking at, I was got this next week, a conversation with a prison app that we're going to, it's these tablets they put in prisons, and they have the inmates can look at different services that are faith-based services, teachings. And so we're looking at that being another opportunity to upload our services onto their platform so that they could, do that. Again, it's reaching people. It also fits with what our heart is. It's like some of the most hurting, the most broken people that many times are forgotten.
Right.
And yet they're the ones that Jesus and his disciples navigated towards.
Absolutely.
So it's just been so cool to see the different, just the ways that God's allowed us to expand. I think also, Mark, what I appreciate about some of the vision you've brought to Pure Heart is many times a church, you have all these facilities and they're used for small X amount of hours on a weekend. And then the rest of the time, the air conditioning is cooling them and the property is sitting vacant. And maybe they have like an AA meeting that meets there during the week or something like that. Right. But you have a vision that goes beyond that of how to continue to build Pure Heart up. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, one, you've already kind of hit on it. This isn't derogatory towards other churches, but a lot of churches, you drive past them during the week, and maybe one night of the week they're busy, but it's pretty vacant.
Yeah.
And this campus, pretty much every day, there is something going on, and it's impacting people's lives. We truly want to be a part of the community and make it a place where people gather more than just on Saturday and Sunday. But kind of with that, we want to leverage our partnerships. We want to look for creative ways, Crossroads, School Connect, Brushfire, having a preschool, ways that we can generate income towards the church or for the church that doesn't take tithe dollars to help pay the bills, right? So, that's kind of one of our goals, one of our thoughts with it is to be able to cover any debt service that we have with some of these other revenue sources.
Yeah. Even, as Dan has shared in the past, when he first started getting into this idea of like, what if we, start reaching out to people in recovery, people struggling with mental health. And there was another big church pastor that, as he was talking about this one goes, why would you do that? There's no money in that, which, broke Dan's heart.
Right.
But that is also a true statement.
That is correct.
There is a huge amount. Many times these people are not they have lives that have been impacted heavily, whether through divorce, mental health issues, addiction. And so they are not in the same place financially. And our church isn't in the same, doesn't have the same representation of people that maybe a church in Scottsdale would have.
That's correct.
And so we are doing tons and tons of work that we feel called to do, but also there's money that it takes to do work.
Right.
Now, God, we believe that He can provide money. Obviously, we know that God's going to take care of us, but also we have to be wise.
Right.
And so I love that you've looked at like, how can we be wise with what we've been given? How good stewardship?
Right.
It's a biblical principle, and so because I think some people, and this isn't a criticism of them because it's just something they've not encountered before. They come on our campus. Why is there a restaurant? Wait, this isn't your restaurant. I saw one over at 83rd and something.
Right.
Wait, who's these other people? Why is there a school? It's like it's all partnerships and opportunities. Yeah. Even Brushfire, I love the fact that while they not only give into out of their profits that they have, but into our the mission of our ministry, but we have officers that are coming and hanging out.
It's a community gathering space.
Community gathering. I've had a couple people that I've actually met in person that they go, I actually just came to get some tacos. And I was like, this is a church. I haven't been to church in a while.
Yeah.
We had firefighters that were actually attending to someone who had physical needs on our property. And while they were wheeling that person out or whatever, they stopped and they're like, there's a brush fire here. Like, I'm coming back. I'm like, well, first take your patient to the hospital and then come join us. We'd love to have you.
They also liked the slide in the children's building. They thought that was pretty cool too.
That's always a good time. But that's what I love about, there's sometimes the things that look easy, the amount of stuff that goes into, the amount of work that goes into making it look easy is staggering. So I appreciate, Mark, what you do. You lean in on such a high level with logistics and administration and the strategy of why we do what we do and making sure that it translates so the person who comes on our campus, it's easy for them.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah. I mean, there's months, even at, this new property we're looking at, if we closed on it today, it would probably be 2 years before we would be able to start any construction.
Wow.
Because it takes that much planning to get things done. Yeah. So, it is a long process. But it's amazing to see, the transformation of this campus. Yeah. When we built the children's building most recently, we tore 3 buildings down. We added a bunch of parking, added this amazing space for all of our kids and the Brushfire restaurant, all those things. It took a while. And then construction itself was, I think 12 months or more.
Yeah.
So,
and even just getting to navigate all the stuff, like you said, with the city and permits and things where, hey, this is how it was drawn, but then, suddenly there's other issues that come up, or we need you to do this additional work here. And so in the same sort of way, there's a whole foundation we want to make sure that we're building as a church. Yeah. Obviously people are many times either hearing about this today for the first time, or they maybe heard about it in church a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And so it can seem sudden, but we want to be very intentional and process through what we're doing, again, being good stewards, because it's like we don't just want to react to things. How can we continue to lean into what is God's mission and vision? What are the opportunities He's given us? Because if we say yes to something, that means we have to say no to something else.
That's correct.
And I think if we're able to plan for the future, it's going to be an exciting thing.
Absolutely.
So how many things have you had to say no to Dan about now that we're committed to this? Like, no more other things. This is too much.
I'm trying not to say no. I'm just trying to say, well, where does that fit with our plan?
That's good.
So it's redirecting maybe a little bit more.
I think this is such a big project right now. It has Dan's undivided attention, which is great. But we do know this about Dan. He loves to move. He loves to keep getting us moving forward. And I think that's why we're all here, is the fact that heartbeat is something that rings in each of us.
Sure.
And so I'm excited about where we're going. Thrilled.
Yeah. So. I mean, part of the excitement for this too, especially me being one of the older guys on staff now, is that this is going to be well beyond my tenure here. What we do is eternal already, the mission of the church, but this is something that's like, we're planning and working on that is going to be well beyond my years at Pure Heart. So we want to do it well and be able to hand off something great to the next generation.
There's that phrase that says, a man has truly understood life when he starts planting trees that he knows he will never sit under. And that heart, I think, is what I hear from you, what I hear from Dan, what I hear from a lot of the people who are working hard on this project. And that rings true in so many ways for many of us that are just like, that's what I want to be a part of. And so I know we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but if someone does want to lean in and they're like, I want to be a part of this, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, specifically for this, I mean, we have the cards in the seat backs in the auditorium, and they can it's a no pressure kind of thing. It's like, hey, I'd like to give this amount today, and they could do something one time, or they could go, hey, I want to do this by the end of the year. But I would say even beyond that, if Pure Heart's their church home and they're not participating by volunteering, serving, in the ministries, either on campus or the things we're doing in the community, or giving to support everything that's currently happening. That would be step one. That's great. Make it, it's your church home. Yeah. Start there, because we do know God has always provided for us.
Yeah. I love, when we do the financial messages, I love how Dan goes, here's the deal. I'm not saying give 10% today. Yeah. I'm saying start giving. Right. If it's $5, it's $10. You're making a commitment to recognize your money's not your own, that this belongs to God. Pure Heart, God's going to take care of Pure Heart, but it's what are you a part of? What are you receiving from? And pouring back into that, saying, God, you've given me this money. I'm going to pour back into what you've given me. And then as he raised that maybe to a percentage, 1%, 3%, 5%, and then maybe up to a tithe, and which is biblical, of like a 10% of my things that come in, God, I believe you're going to take care of my needs. Yeah. Because a lot of us sometimes will go, well, 10% of my income,
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, but it's like, man, It
sounds bizarre to do that.
Yeah. And I've even seen in my own life as I've chosen to walk in that. I'd been a Christian for a long time, but I hadn't walked in that. I kind of gave as I, remembered, or I had money in my wallet. Right. And as I chose to move more and more into that, and then even go above that amount and just say, you know what, I got a raise. I just don't even want to see that raise. I want to raise my giving and raise my saving, also investing in the future. That's us being wise. If we're, spending wisely, investing into the future, and then giving into what God calls us to. And so I just love that we're able to just go, hey, we're not here to pressure people. We want you to be a part of what God's doing, and just go, look, I was able to give into this. I was a part of that. Right. So,
and I think in a very, let's be honest, we live in kind of a cynical world right now. I mean, we question everything. Sure. And I get it. Because there's been so many ways that things have gone awry in different either ministries, nonprofits, and things. Right. What I love about being a part of this organization and this ministry is the fact of we're not sacrificing anything that we're called to do ministry in order to do things like growing, like this expansion or whatever. And in fact, this expansion and building into other campuses and things is so that we can continue to do even more, like with Life Bridge, where we're taking care of people who cannot make ends meet and they need food, and being able to do that. When we expand all of it. Those core elements are going into these areas, so we continue to meet needs. And we're not going, hey, we want to build a building, but we're going to scrimp on all this other stuff or whatever. It's going, it's to lean in and do that even more so. And that's what I really appreciate with what we're doing here.
Yeah. My understanding also is that if you mentioned the seatback cards, but if a person's not coming to one of our physical campuses, if they go to the giving page in the app or pureheart.org/give, there's a designation they can click down for a land designation.
Yes, that's correct.
Dan said, he goes, also, this is, we're asking for above and beyond. What is my best effort? Because we still, there is a air conditions that's still running, taxes that have to, there's the staff that needs to be paid. There's still
all the
Pure
ministry
Heart
areas are
ministry
still
areas
rolling.
still are rolling forward.
Right.
But it's like, what is God? Pray about it. Spend time just say, hey, what is God calling me to do above? What's my best effort? And so that's, a couple of different ways. The app, pureheart.org/give, and just click down land, or a physical check even, write and land on the bottom of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
Great. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you're like, being in front of a microphone is not my forte.
This is not me. That is correct. It is not me.
But we really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all the hard work that you're pouring into this and so many other projects.
Yeah.
So it's really good to have you here.
Yeah. Well, it's truly a privilege that, I get to be a part of what's happening here. That's one of the things. It's like God could do everything that he needs to get done for his kingdom without any of us, but he chooses to include us, and we're just normal folks, so it's cool to be a part of what God's doing.
Yeah, it's cool just seeing your gifts used here. Thanks,
Well, thank you. All right.
That was a great episode. I love getting to hear all the things Pastor Mark, his heart for how we're going to reach the next generation. And so if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You don't want to miss an episode. We have a lot of awesome guests coming up. So we will talk to you guys next week.